Welcome to this tutorial on New-VM, the PowerShell cmdlet for creating virtual machines. In this video, you'll learn how to programmatically create and configure virtual machines using hyper-v and PowerShell commands. This is an essential skill for automating your virtualization infrastructure and managing multiple virtual machines efficiently. New-VM is a hyper-v cmdlet that allows you to create new virtual machines programmatically using PowerShell commands. Instead of manually clicking through the hyper-v manager interface, you can use this cmdlet to automate the entire virtual machine creation process. This is particularly useful when you need to create multiple virtual machines with consistent configurations or integrate VM creation into your automation scripts. Let's look at the basic syntax for creating a virtual machine. The command starts with new-VM followed by several key parameters. The name parameter specifies the virtual machine identifier. Memory startup bytes defines the initial RAM allocation, in this example, 4 GB. Generation specifies whether to create a Generation 1 or Generation 2 virtual machine. New VHD path defines where the virtual hard disk will be stored, and new VHD size bytes sets the size of the new virtual hard disk, here set to 60 GB. There are 4 essential parameters you need to understand when creating virtual machines. The name parameter is the virtual machine identifier that you'll use to reference this VM memory startup bytes, controls the initial RAM allocation for the virtual machine. Generation determines whether you're creating a Generation 1 or Generation 2 virtual machine. And new VHD path specifies the location where your virtual hard disk file will be stored on the host system. Understanding the difference between Generation 1 and Generation 2 virtual machines is crucial. Generation 1 virtual machines use legacy BIOS support and include both IDE and SCSI controllers. They're compatible with older operating systems. Generation 2 virtual machines use UEFI firmware, support secure boot, and offer better overall performance. For modern operating systems, Generation 2 is recommended unless you specifically need to run legacy systems that require BIOS support. You can also create a virtual machine using an existing virtual hard disk. Instead of using the new VHD path parameter, you use the VHD path parameter to point to an existing VHDX file. This is useful when you have a pre-configured virtual hard disk or when you're migrating virtual machines. In this example, we're creating a virtual machine called Existing VM with 8 GB of memory, Generation 2 firmware, and attaching an existing virtual hard disk from the specified path. PowerShell allows you to configure dynamic memory for your virtual machines. By adding the dynamic memory switch parameter, you enable the virtual machine to adjust its RAM allocation based on the actual workload. This means the VM will use less physical memory when idle and request more when needed. In this example, we're creating a virtual machine with a starting memory of 2 GB, but it can dynamically scale up or down based on demand, optimizing your host's memory usage. To provide network connectivity to your virtual machine, you need to connect it to a virtual switch. The switch name parameter allows you to specify which virtual switch to attach to the VM virtual switches must be created beforehand using the new-VM switch cmdlet. In this example, we're connecting the virtual machine to an existing switch called external switch, which typically provides the VM with access to your physical network. You have additional control over where your virtual machine files are stored and how the VM boots. The path parameter lets you specify a custom directory for all virtual machine configuration files, not just the virtual hard disk. The boot device parameter controls the boot order, and in this example, it's set to VHD, meaning the virtual machine will boot directly from the virtual hard disk. This is useful for controlling the startup behavior of your virtual machines. Let's bring everything together with a complete example. This command creates a virtual machine called web server with 8 GB of memory, Generation 2 firmware, and a new 120 GB virtual hard disk. It connects to an external switch for network access, stores all files in the c:\vms directory, and is configured to boot from the virtual hard disk. This comprehensive command demonstrates how to combine multiple parameters to create a fully configured virtual machine in a single PowerShell command.
If you like this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Visit codelucky.com for more such useful content.